Welcome to the second episode of Geeks Worldwide Weekly Geekly. God damn it! Today with there was a little bit of a scheduling problem, and I'm joined today by my good friend Gasicles.
Hey, what's going on, everybody?
Oh, no boom today.
No, it fell a little flat the first time around. I think people were unprepared for it and they didn't know how to react, so I thought I'd back off of it this week.
Not like how would you talk about a trip you took earlier? How was the business? How did the business trip go?
It wasn't bad. It wasn't bad at all.
How was your Christmas and New Year?
That was not good. Just I was still working and had a lot of unexpected water events in my house. So, but it's all good now. So we're back to broadcasting. So, what about
That's
you,
all
man?
that really matters.
Yeah. Hey,
What
what was your like big thing that you got for Christmas?
I got a
Including
couple. Including what?
Including anything you bought for yourself.
I didn't really get anything bit huge. I mean, I got a car, which is a huge thing that you would think, but like, I already was kind of expecting it, so it wasn't really like a Christmas gift. It was more of like, you got a car. Just today just happens to be Christmas. I got this sick DC encyclopedia though.
Ah, very nice.
To match my Marvel one.
Very cool.
Very cool indeed.
Yeah, that's awesome.
So let's dive headfirst into the news. This week wasn't the biggest week for news. I mean, you don't really expect the first week of January to be the biggest week in news. But there was a couple things. I know you haven't seen the Daredevil trailer, but that was released with the official release date. It is not being released on the same day as Batman vs Superman, as reported.
Okay.
It's being released, like, I think a week before.
Okay.
And the trailer, I mean, nothing really. It's a minute and a half, and it's just like some voiceovers from season one with a little bit like the mosaics being some like important things.
Right.
Like there's a mimicking of the Sistine Chapel with Matt and his dad, and you can hear the voiceover.
Okay.
And for the last like 10 seconds, the church windows just start exploding.
So does that feel like a bullseye thing going on?
I thought more Punisher.
Okay. Huh. Okay. Yeah, because we've seen stills of that crossover episode coming, right?
Of the Punisher one?
Yeah.
Yeah, we have. I wonder if we're gonna get Do you think we're gonna get Bullseye?
I would assume so. I mean, I don't know how you don't do it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I meant more like this season.
I don't know.
Yeah, I would.
Let me think about. I mean, so the trend in villains, the weird thing, which although in most cases I approve of, is it seems most recently people are going big villain early.
Yeah.
Like, in movie trilogies, they seem to be pulling them out in the second thing, which I think is good. Especially, I don't know that movie creators and directors like to feel handcuffed into doing a particular villain, and so I like this concept of, well, let's put that guy in the second movie and get it over and done with, so that when I get to the third movie, I have a little more creative freedom.
Yeah.
So I'm kind of on board for that. How that's playing out in TV, I haven't really thought through. I mean, it looks like the Flash. They do Reverse Flash episode 1, right? I mean, season 1, and then do Zoom for season 2. Those are probably the Flash's 2 biggest enemies. So
yeah, you don't know where they're gonna go from there.
Yeah,
I would kind of like because we've maybe seen Bullseye. It wasn't confirmed, but there was the sniper in the Russian episode. The guy with the two when Matt and the Russians were working working together to go against Fisk, and the cop was killed.
Okay.
That was the sniper there. People saw playing cards in his bag.
Okay.
Which is a huge tell for Bullseye.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
And not like just like some people saw it, some people didn't. Like it's like if you go back and watch it, you'll see the playing cards.
Right.
But it was never confirmed as Bullseye.
Right.
So that means if it is Bullseye, he's working for Kingpin. which it would be kind of cool to see him like taking hits from Kingpin and just performing them out while Kingpin's in jail, because that was you'd still have Vincent D'Onofrio for that,
Right.
but it wouldn't be like, oh, he's in jail, now he's out, now you have to fight him again. Like then it kind of just like keeps the stakes up, like keeps consequence.
Right. Okay.
So that's what I would like to see that.
Yeah, I can see that. So what else went down in news this week?
It really was a slow week.
Yeah.
That
and I think I guess maybe in other areas of geekdom, because CES is going on this week, maybe a lot of the rest of like nerd culture was like, hey, everybody's going to be focusing on like all the new hardware and stuff that's getting dropped out at that show, and decided not to have a lot in the news cycle this week.
Oh yeah, that's probably too, and like a lot of the TV shows are on break.
Yeah, although Supergirl came back, which caught me entirely off guard.
I stopped watching that show.
Yeah, so I'm a big fan. I was doing reviews of every episode for the site for a while. I've backed off of that, but yeah, I was hugely surprised that returned early. Nice move to maybe gain some additional viewership.
Oh, definitely, especially people that are like, oh, I don't have. There's nothing comic book, because there's a lot of people that are like bandwagon comic book fans now, that are just fans of TV and the movies. They're like, I don't have anything to watch right now. Oh, Supergirl's back.
Yeah.
Let me just catch up on this before it comes back.
Yeah,
so it's a very smart play.
I don't think of them as bandwagon fans.
Oh no, I don't think of them necessarily as bandwagon fans either. I just mean more like, once the movies, like the Marvel movies came out, especially Iron Man, people were like, oh, this is really. I think I should call them Wikipedia fans.
Or I guess to me they're just fans who, for them, the comic book material is big screen first, little screen second, and they're occasional consumers of the printed content.
Yeah, I'm not. That like, thinking back, it's kind of like really like I'm slighting them.
And I didn't think you were. I just I didn't think you were. B, I think there are some people who come from comic books first who do, and it's an interesting dynamic, because to be quite honest, it's kind of how I came to Geeks Worldwide, because I was getting back into reading printed comics, and I was part of a Facebook group that was ostensibly a comic books discussion group, but I got frustrated because every time I went to that group, what everybody was talking about was the movies, and it's like it was like if you posted a comment or tried to start a discussion about like comics, some people would participate in it, but just in the like purely serialized way in which Facebook discussion groups go, it got rapidly overrun and buried by the next movie conversation that started up. And I get it. I get that for some people that's what they like and that's how they're coming to it. But
yeah,
but I can't. That kind of dynamic is what pushed me over. It was what caused me to kind of go out and search more and find Geeks Worldwide, because I wanted to connect with some people who actually talked about comic books.
Yeah, and I've started reading comic books a lot more in like the past like 2 or 3 months, and I go once a week. I go on Wednesdays every week.
Yeah.
And pick up like 5 or 6 books, and like if anyone that's listening doesn't read comic books and has never tried it, it can be hard. Like the way they're written, it can be hard to follow along. But once you kind of get the hang of it, they're really, really good.
Yeah, I would say, and it's decades removed from that initial entry into the comic book medium. I feel like it's work for like the first year. Once you get the flow of it. Yeah.
Because the way that it's not written like a typical book is, where you get to see the lines, and then you like what you would think it would be is you'd see the line, or like what they do in books where they have like pictures in the middle, like a biographical book.
Yeah.
Where they have the picture on top and then they have the writing on below explaining the picture, is what you would think it would be. And it's not like that at all. It has like boxes are put all over the place, and you have to really kind of connect the dots, basically.
Well, a big thing too is, people come at it from, who are big novel readers or readers of some other sub-medium or subgenre, and the tough thing for people to grasp is like why you should care about the art.
Oh, the art's probably the biggest part of it.
And why it matters that this one artist does it one way and this artist does it the second way. I struggle with that now after having read, I still come at it a lot of times from a story first perspective. And a lot of times I'll stay on a book or I'll give a book a pass because it's a really great story and the art's mediocre. But grasping the impact of the art is something I think that's tough for people. But I think it's kind of work for that first, I would say, year. And most of that is just building out your understanding of the framework of whatever universe you're reading in, DC or Marvel, or another one of the second tier, one of the tier 2 publishers or lower. And then you hit that eureka moment where it's kind of like, okay, anytime a new comic starts and it's set in this universe, I get it. Like I understand like what edge of this box it's coming in from. And then you also kind of get, like you said, the flow, like why does it matter where the horizontal landscape page is in the book? And, why do the different panel layouts matter? And, that kind of stuff. So yeah, it's interesting.
And it's a good thing. Well, at least for me, that Marvel is releasing a bunch of number ones, or is in the past like month or so.
Okay. Yeah.
Because that's an easy way to get right into comics. Is there's an issue 1. I like Daredevil. I'm gonna grab the Daredevil book. I like X-Men. I'll grab the X-Men book. And that's, I think, what's been the problem with, not necessarily the problem, because I don't think it's actually a problem at all. But with DC is I don't feel like they're gonna get a lot of new readers, because all their issues are at like 48. And I'm not going to go buy 47 comics just to catch up to 48.
Yeah, I can understand that. I will say, even though we kind of rail against it every once in a while, because the notion of the 4 to 6 issue arc is entirely built around putting those things in trades. So it's entirely a marketing corporate thing. However, that being the case, when somebody tells you, or once you kind of figure it out, you always know that every 4 to 6 issues there should be a decent jumping on point. When a new arc is going to start, and there's going to be some degree of exposition and coverage of like, what that character is and kind of where they're coming from.
I was just more thinking of like, maybe some people like the new year be like, I'm going to go grab a comic book. I feel like someone would be more like, they'd be like, I Marvel number 1 rather than DC 48.
Yeah.
But on the terms of DC, or on the topic of DC, the girl from Buffy the Vampire Slayer, not the girl from Buffy the Vampire Slayer, but a girl from Buffy the Vampire Slayer, I don't remember her name exactly, was cast on Legends of Tomorrow.
I think it's actually Firefly.
Firefly.
Yeah.
So the Whedonverse.
Yes. So Jewel State, who played, I'm probably gonna mess her name up. In fact, I'm not gonna mess her name up. I'm actually gonna look it up because it escapes me right now for some reason. And I'm a big Firefly fan, but I do not remember.
I love Nathan Fillion, but I never watched Firefly.
Yeah, that's unfortunate. Yeah.
Is it on Netflix? Because I definitely would give it a shot.
I'm not sure if it's on Netflix. Yeah, I'm not sure.
I think Serenity is.
Yes, and the I would argue the best way to do it obviously is to watch
the show first.
Watch the show first, and then go into Serenity. So, but that's just me. But yeah, she got cast on Legends of Tomorrow, which I think is awesome. I didn't read the Firefly Kaylee. I was thinking Kaylee, but I was thinking of it spelled differently. So, but yeah. So she was a fan favorite on Firefly. She was very kind of unassuming. Like you really kind of had to, fully grasp that story and that team and how they were built to understand why she's important to the crew and why in a lot of cases she's supremely important to the crew. Like they could not do some of the things they pulled off without her. But it'll be interesting to see her in that role. I haven't seen a lot of the other stuff she's done, but the bits and pieces that I have seen, and she's done spots on Stargate Atlantis, and some other stuff. And she plays roles that are far and away, very different from the Kaylee character. On Firefly, where she was kind of innocent, to a certain extent, at least initially, she kind of came off innocent and mousy, but you also knew that she kind of had this Felicity Smoke kind of rage that could just erupt, on you and rain terror and fire on anybody around you. You wouldn't want to invoke that, but yeah, I think it'll be very interesting. Did you see? Is she going to be a regular cast member or like a recurring role or?
I don't know. I did hear that the CW just wants it to be. It's not. Is it on the CW?
Yes.
Yeah, they just want it to be one season.
Okay.
Because I think it's gonna be so fantastical, and I think it's gonna be really, really expensive.
Right.
So they're either gonna talk with it's either gonna be one season or rotating cast for each season.
Okay.
And so I would assume that she would just be, if it's gonna be one season, might as well just make her a recurring cast member.
Right, and she's gonna be the tech. She's gonna be the Cisco / Felicity for them. Okay.
She's probably gonna be maybe a little bit of Rip Hunter's love interest.
Right. Okay.
They're from the same time period.
Okay.
Now,
did you watch? I know this wouldn't have this would definitely be a retro watch for you. But did you ever watch any of the Buffy the Vampire Slayer stuff?
I've seen episodes.
Okay.
But I never sat down and
right.
found it.
Okay. No, it was just interesting. I was thinking this week that some of those characters on there, like the Xander and Willow, kind of as a pair, are kind of your precursors to, the Cisco and Felicity Smoke characters.
Yeah, we were talking about the Josh Whedon earlier, and kind of the effect that he's had on definitely the comic. We didn't really talk about this. We talked about Josh Whedon, but the effect that he's seemingly had on on comics, not comics, but the comic book movie universes and stuff.
Yeah.
With what you just said, Willow and who?
Xander.
Willow and Xander being precursors to what Cisco and Felicity are.
Right.
And I think that's what DC wants Zack Snyder to be. I don't know if he's necessarily as good of a director as Whedon is.
Yeah.
Frankly, I don't think he is as good a director as Whedon is.
Yeah.
But that brings up a good thing about Whedon is, has he kind of, are people worn out by Whedon? What do you think about that?
The only thing that I was aware of, was this whole thing with the Black Widow thing, and I guess, and I don't know if that's why he stepped away from the Avengers franchise, or if he was asked to step away, or what. I do know. So I do know he was not pleased about the whole Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. thing, because that was kind of sprung on him. He was told that they were doing it. To his credit, he supported it from a creative aspect and kind of, participated in, and I think that was stuffed underneath his umbrella. I think he was supposed to, be the architect of kind of.
I think he's an executive producer on the show.
Yeah. So, he stood by it while it was run, but he wasn't happy about it because he felt it was that one additional thing that made what they were trying to execute too complex.
It's not even necessarily the premise of the show. Phil Coulson.
Yes, that was another big thing. Is he wanted Coulson to remain dead, because that's Whedon's shtick, right? He kills characters and that's it.
I don't even think he wanted to do it because that's what he does. I think he was more what I think I've read quotes that were along the lines of, there's no point for the Avengers at that point, because what they did was purely based off of like Coulson died believing in this goal.
Right.
So they were going to fight for this goal because of him. But now that he's alive, what's the point of fighting together for?
Right. And I also read something about that he felt it marginalized that character by making their death, not of value.
Yeah, he did, and he had a lot of problems. And his main backlash came from AOU, which you talked about, Black Widow. And it wasn't even necessarily that. I just think that their expectations were so high. Coming off the first Avengers movie, coming off of Winter Soldier, coming off of Guardians of the Galaxy, they expected this to be the best comic book movie yet. And that's just too much to put on a film.
And I mean, I don't know. So, that was my number one favorite film of the year. We just recently, started putting together our inputs for, our best of list. My best of lists selections were not necessarily things that I thought were the best. They were the things that were my favorite.
That you had the most fun at.
Right, exactly.
And if I made a best of list based on like what you just said, your parameters, Age of Ultron definitely would have been on it, because as just purely a collection of scenes.
Right, exactly.
I think it does what Avengers does better, but it came after Avengers.
Right. And I was on the spoiler cast when we did it over the summer. For me, I think what I said was I would have rated it a half point behind Avengers. And I think I would have given Avengers like an 8.5, and I would have given Age of Ultron like an 8.0, something like that. It may have been 9. I think it was actually 9.0, 8.5. I thought Age of Ultron was good. I did not need it to be as good as Avengers. And this is, like you said, it's where are people's expectations. So I grew up under the trilogy format, right? And that's what it is. I know that any package of 3 movies, one's going to be the best, and it's going to be a thing, right? It's going to be a discussion of what happens. Most people say that the Matrix movies start off at a high and drop off as you progress to 2 and 3. Lots of people say that the original that episodes 4, 5, and 6 of Star Wars, that either Empire or Jedi are up there. That 4 is a great movie, but isn't necessarily the best. So in that, it's people have this perception that that trilogy gets better, as it goes on.
Oh, I've heard the opposite for Star Wars.
You've heard what the opposite of what?
I've heard that starts off at a high, goes to another high, and then dramatically dips. For
episodes 4, 5, and 6, yeah, and I mean that's yes,
that's just like the public perception that I've been hearing.
Yeah, that trilogy probably has the most evenly divided.
Yeah, definitely. It's probably the best trilogy of all time. That or the Dark Knight trilogy.
Yeah,
of that nature.
Yeah, I wouldn't join you on the second one. But
oh, really?
The Batman movies are good. They're good. They're good.
I think Dark Knight is one of the best movies that I've ever seen. But Batman Begins is good, and Dark Knight Rises is good. So I can actually understand where you're coming from.
Yeah. It's my impression of that trilogy is very kind of piecemeal. Like I do think Batman Begins is probably the best in a lot of ways because it's the simplest,
and it's the most Batman.
Yes. It just gets so very complicated as that trilogy goes on, and then you swap out Katie Holmes from Maggie Gyllenhaal, who I'm not as warmed up to. But then in the second one, you have the absolutely incredible performance of Heath Ledger.
I would say that the second one, standalone, is by far the best movie, but it's not the best Batman movie.
Of that trilogy.
Because
that whole trilogy is better than, the Michael Keaton, which is a difficult thing. Let me not say that. The Michael Keaton Batman movies, the 2 that he did with Tim Burton, they're their own thing. They were good for their time. It's kind of unfair to compare the 2. So.
And people wrap those in with the third and fourth one of those, which is unfair. Different director, different Batman. You can't do it.
different market position that was directed by the studio. Those movies, which I would argue are very much what's going on with The Force Awakens, were not to the extent, but similar strategy. Were driven to be more. Tim Burton's Batman starts off as a very dark Batman. It's meant to reflect kind of the Dark Knight stuff that, well, I guess it
was based off of Frank Miller's run, correct?
I don't know, because I don't remember the exact timing of those things.
I'm pretty sure it's either right there or a couple years before. I think it's based off of Frank Miller's run.
Okay. But it was very dark. It was meant to be very adult. It was not kiddie.
It was not. It was a huge swing from the campy of 1996.
Exactly, rather the 1960s. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then in 3 and 4, there was Joel Schumacher picks them up, and there was direction to start making them more accessible to a younger crowd. That's what it is. It's kind of like comparing the original Star Wars trilogy to the prequels, which I definitely think are definitely skewed and targeted towards a younger crowd than the original trilogies were.
I definitely agree. This podcast has become less of what news of this week and more of we talked about Star Trek for 40 minutes last week. We're talking about the old Star Wars movies, old Batman movies, just real digression.
But to bring it back around to Whedon, this whole thing, the whole thing about him being vilified for the Black Widow thing, I just don't, I don't get it. And let me say this about Whedon. Everybody knows I'm a big Whedon fan, so I'll readily admit what I'm about to say probably is full of all sorts of bias towards him, or in favor of him. But if you don't have Buffy the Vampire Slayer for 7 years on TV, there are lots of things that you don't have in the later 90s and now, right?
Oh yeah.
I'm going to say that you could argue Linda Carter's Wonder Woman maybe broke this ground before, but there was such a large swath of time between that and Buffy. In modern times, in most recent times, she is she and her show are the first successful, strong female, action-oriented television series of a significantly long run. I guess you had Jennifer Garner's Alias, kind of also maybe near that time frame, but it wasn't the same thing.
Definitely not.
So to me, if you don't have the success of Buffy, there's lots of other characters that you don't get to see. If I trace it all the way back, I don't necessarily know that you get a Captain Marvel movie.
I think he's gonna come back for that.
That would be interesting. But so I think he does. I think he does have a warm appreciation
way with
for
women.
Females. Yeah. Well, I was just saying that he's a proponent of women. I mean, the whole concept of Buffy is Whedon's thing. That didn't come from anywhere. It didn't come from the studio. It didn't come from it didn't come from the DC and Marvel stuff of we need to push females. We need to push African Americans, which I've been on record saying I'm fine with. I don't really care that it's contrived. But my point is that Joss Whedon decided that there needed to be a strong female action hero on a big screen and then eventually on a small screen. And he tried to do that with the movie, with Erica Eleniak and Jason Priestley and Donald Sutherland, and it was taken from him and made something very different than what he had creatively come up with. So my point is, I don't buy that a guy who dedicated 10 to 12 years of his life trying to tell a good Buffy the Vampire the Slayer story because he wanted young girls to have a strong example of a female action hero. I don't buy that guy takes Scarlett Johansson and tries to make her an object. I don't think that's what he did. I think what he does with that character is different than what he did with Buffy, because if you read the comics, she's a different character. And oh, by the way, this whole thing of, oh, well, I didn't like how she was going after the Hulk. Read her in the comics. She is a very sexually aggressive female.
Yeah.
And I don't know that we have to view that as there being anything wrong with it. Because when a guy is sexually aggressive, we just wave our hands and say, well, that's the way men are.
And I don't even necessarily wave our hands. If there was a female character like James Bond,
right,
he would get ripped to shreds.
right.
And James Bond is looked at this suave, cool ladies man.
Right.
And if it was the other way, ripped to shreds.
Right. She would be labeled as a seductress.
Exactly.
But when it's a guy, we label him as an action hero.
Exactly.
Right? You know?
Exactly.
So I'm and not to say that nothing has been done with the Black Widow to overly sexualize her, movie stills and all that kind of stuff. But that's not Joss Whedon doing that. Right?
No, that's definitely the brand.
Right. So yeah, I'm and what I point to, and this is a rehash from some things that I said either on SNN and maybe on Geeks on Screen way back in the day, is look at her in the first movie. She jumps on, I don't know what the thing is, I call it a Chitauri speeder bike. She jumps on one of the Chitauri flying cars, holds her own. Here's the thing to think about. Other than her being captured by a super powerful android made out of adamantium. So yes, does she get captured? Yes. She gets captured by a character who has arguably been portrayed as the most powerful in the Marvel universe at various times. So I don't really know why you'd have a problem with that. But but outside of that, she never gets captured. I don't recall her ever being knocked out. She is constantly, there's that joke about, she's constantly cleaning up after the boys. And she literally is. She is constantly coming out of things unscathed when the other guys on the Avengers are completely laid out on the floor.
Think about that scene in Captain America where she swings under the underpass and takes out two guys and then just gets right back into the fight.
Right. I think she's an awesome character.
I do too. And I say this cautiously because people shit on Hawkeye, but Hawkeye is not nearly as strong of a character as she is.
No. I think some of that may have been scripting. I think I was glad to see Jeremy Renner's turn in Age of Ultron. I think he was much better as Hawkeye.
Yeah.
I
love Jeremy Renner.
Yeah. Yes. When he gets the right stuff.
Yeah.
I think him being portrayed as the strong silent type in the first Avengers movie was the wrong way to go with him, especially since he's such a bro in the comics, So, but yes, I
wish have you read any of Ultimate Hawkeye?
I have not. No.
I think it was an older run. He almost has a superhuman ability of not missing.
Right.
And there's one. I can remember the scene vividly that he's captured and he bites off his fingernails and spits them out and kills people with his fingernails.
Yeah.
And it's just it would be kind of cool if they showed him like that, as this super badass.
Yeah.
Because I feel if you're gonna have characters that don't have superpowers, you need to make them twice as cool, twice as badass for them to be to stand up.
Right.
Because you're not going to look at Thor and then look at Hawkeye and be like, why are they on the same team?
Yeah, I want to say there's been variants of his character portrayed where he had arguably superhuman vision. He had if he was standing on top of a building, he could clearly pick something out at a much further distance than
he did hit that alien with the no look.
Okay.
He did hit the alien with the no look. It was pretty cool.
But yeah, but I agree. I mean, I think Renner's Hawkeye was much better in the second movie. But overall, yeah, if I'm power ranking the Avengers, Black Widow is certainly up there above Hawkeye in the movies as Whedon has them portrayed. So I don't know.
All right, well, in the dull conversation, let's get to our favorites of the year.
Yeah.
Being it the first week of 2017, ambitious.
Yeah.
What was your favorite game?
My input for that was mine was Just Cause 3.
Mm.
And it wasn't the best game, but what I put in my write up, which I think people will start seeing these going up pretty soon, maybe next week. Kind of the aggregated best of list from the GWW writers. I think entertainment editor Everett Harn is pulling those together. So, but it wasn't necessarily the best game that I played. I played a crap ton of games last year. But it was the most fun. I was really getting into streaming and video capture last year, and when you do that, it's kind of like shooting a film. You record hours and hours and hours of footage, just trying to get to a few good 2-minute highlight reels. Like Just Cause 3 is one long continuous highlight reel. So things happen in there so crazy that it's just a fun kind of thrill ride all the way through. So what was yours?
I'm mostly a sports video game guy.
Okay.
But I would say my favorite was Batman Arkham Knight.
Okay, nice. What system did you play that on?
Xbox.
Okay, all right.
I didn't think it was as good as Arkham City.
Really?
Yeah, I thought Arkham City was better. I thought Arkham Knight looked better than advanced game would, just time-wise. I think the story in Arkham City was better.
I actually think Arkham City is well, and I won't say story. To me, the physics of Arkham City are the weakest. It was the middle one, right?
Yeah.
The one done by a different studio than Rocksteady.
No, that's Arkham Origins.
Okay. All right.
Arkham City's the one where, the Joker, has Clayface, pretend to be him.
Okay. All right. Good deal. So how about favorite comic of the year for you?
We talked about this on Capes this week, and I was woefully unprepared. So I just picked Nova. But thinking about it more, what are we going? Are we going to go trade first, or single issue, or series?
Whatever you want to do. Yeah, if you have ones for all three of those, we can do those.
Well, I'll go single issue first because that's the one that's on my mind.
Okay.
And that's gonna be Vader Down.
Okay. Yeah, I can see that.
That book was especially the first issue of that was unbelievable. It was the artwork was amazing, the book itself was amazing, the story was amazing, and if you're looking for something to show you the true power of Darth Vader in his prime, that is a book you want to read because there's a shot where there's probably 50 rebel pilots, and there's one TIE fighter, and we know that's Darth Vader, but they don't. Right. And excuse me. And they say, "Oh, it's just one guy. We can take him."
Right.
And the next panel is Darth Vader's force in a ship over this way, forcing another one over this way, evading. It's really showing that he is the best pilot that Obi-Wan's ever seen.
Okay.
And if you haven't read it, you have to get to that book.
So yeah, it was actually, and I'm not a huge ginormous, I'm not a 24-hour, 365-day a year Star Wars fan. It was hard for me to not choose Vader as my number one for that. For you, that was your single issue.
Yeah, single issue.
Yeah, so I wound up picking. I think it was because it was the most surprising. I wound up picking. The full title of it escapes me. I think it's the Dark Side Apocalypse War. Shazam #1 issue. So this is one of the books in the series where the Justice League has defeated Darkseid and have wound up assuming. But they've been a mixture of either they've been granted or they're somehow assuming powers that are akin to the powers of gods. And Shazam, man, I don't even remember what his role was going to be.
God of Gods. I didn't read it. I listened to the comic historian of it.
Yeah.
God of Gods.
And it was that dude has been such a tool in the New 52 reboot. I despise the way he has been handled. So this is so much of a great comeback story for him, and he has just shown to be like the most badass of the badasses. And I'm like, if you're going to have Shazam there, that's a good way to portray him. The artwork was amazing in that book, incredibly detailed. I forget the guy's name. I'll go back and look it up. But his level of attention to detail to like the background scenery was just shocking. So that's what I liked. Do you want to cover any more of those, or you would just want to go on?
We can go with the best single series because
Okay.
I didn't really pick up any trades.
Okay.
I would probably go Scott Snyder's run on Batman.
Okay. Yep. Nobody can argue with that.
Especially Batman Endgame. That I think is the next iconic Joker story.
Okay. And that's the arc after Year Zero?
Yes.
Okay. All right.
Like after the Court of Owls and.
Okay. Yeah.
And like Joker's kind of portrayed to be this like immortal being.
Right.
That as the man who laughs.
Right.
And it's so dark and twisted, and it shows that the Joker isn't just this like really funny guy
who
happens to kill people.
Right.
It shows that he's this criminal mastermind who remembers these things from the past and utilizes them to his advantage today.
Okay. Good deal.
What'd you think? What was your best series?
It was another tough pick. Somebody could arguably call me out on it. I wound up going with all new Captain America. So this was the recasting of Captain America as Sam Wilson. And it was tough for me because I didn't actually stay on that series because it came out right in the run up to when we knew Secret Wars was coming and everything was going to be obliterated. But for the few issues I was on, I just felt like it was such an important story to tell in terms of addressing diversity in the comic book world. And I know there's been numerous arguments about this in numerous positions. Again, I don't care if it's contrived. It's additional content that needs to be out there to start making comics reflect what the world looks like.
That's my problem with these like race things is I definitely agree that like. Yeah, a black person should be Captain America because black people live in America too. Doesn't necessarily need to be a white guy.
Right.
But I don't like things that are so contrived, and I didn't actually think that the transition to Falcon was as contrived.
Right. Not as contrived as Thor.
Some other as Thor is.
But that's definitely a matter of perspective. There are people who are very high on female Thor. So
I like female Thor a lot, but like the way it was like, oh, Thor's unworthy. You're Thor. If you're battling cancer, you can only be Thor, but it's detrimental to your health. All right. Bang, get into the action.
But yeah, and to me, the story just spoke to me because I definitely, in the first few issues of that, and I don't know if they kept it up because I didn't stay on, but they do some flashbacks where it's a lot. It feels a lot like an episode of Arrow, but it's the action in the current time. But then they flash back to him growing up as a kid and some of the things that he saw and went through that influenced who he is now. And then those flashbacks, I could definitely relate to those experiences. So, to me, and again, that's the whole point of doing things like that. So, it's no offense. It's sometimes tough for me to relate to the concept of a Caucasian kid who grows up in a suburb.
Tony Stark,
superhero, right? That's not how I came up. Seeing a guy who grew up in the projects in low rent housing and struggled to eat 3 meals a day, that I can relate to a lot of that. So seeing that and seeing that being character building to a person being a superhero to be is a starkly different story than a lot of what we normally get told. And I think it's just as interesting to see. So that was awesome.
It was definitely a very important story to tell.
Yeah. All right, man. Where we are at, what do you want to do? We're definitely a skosh past 11 p.m. East Coast time. You want to go ahead and wrap up?
Let's do a couple more, and then we can wrap up. We can do movie and TV show, and then wrap it up.
Cool. All right.
My favorite movie this year, not comic book, was probably Ex Machina.
Okay. All right.
And that movie terrified me. Not necessarily because it's like the scariest movie,
Right.
but it's the concept.
Right. And that's
that freaks me out.
That's good. That's good to hear, because that is our viewing room episode for Two Guys, a Girl, and a Scene coming up this Sunday. So entertainment writer John Connor and Sarah Belmont and I will be going over that movie on Sunday, and I haven't watched it yet. So Sarah.
Oh, that movie's gonna be right up your alley.
Yeah. She's told me it's supposed to be pretty good, so I'm very interested to check it out.
It's a very good movie, and there's some Star Wars people in it. Oscar Isaac, who plays Poe, is in it. He plays a completely different character.
Okay, all right.
And Don Helm Gleeson, who plays General Hux, is in it. He also plays a completely different character.
All right, that'll be cool to see. That'll be awesome.
Yeah, that movie is really, really scary just because of like the whole world we live in now.
Right.
It's a lot like, it's scary in the same way that Her is scary with Joaquin Phoenix. Oh no, is it River Phoenix? No, it's Joaquin.
Yeah, Joaquin. Yeah, River is no longer with us, unfortunately.
Oh, jeez, no.
It happened a long time ago, Matt. Probably before your time, but yeah.
Jeez, I feel like a dick. But no, it's scary in the same way that movie's kind of scary, but it's a lot scarier because it's like a horror movie.
Right.
What was your pick? What was number one for you? Star Wars, I'm assuming.
No. My favorite movie was what we were just talking about, Age of Ultron. And not the best movie that came out this year by any means. But I had such a fun time watching it.
It was a great time.
Yeah. It was like a big frat party.
Yeah, it was so much fun.
Yeah, and I mean, when you think about the whole thing, right? The whole build up and the reveals and the trailers and going to see the movie and that whole package of the movie experience, to me, for Age of Ultron was all good. So, all right. Favorite TV show, is that our last one?
That was gonna be the last one of the night. There was a lot of really, really good television. Yeah. I'm probably gonna go Daredevil.
Okay.
Which, it's funny to think of Daredevil as being this year.
Yeah.
Same with like when people like yesterday on Capes on Tuesday, someone was like, "Oh, Kingsman's my number 3 movie." I was like, "Holy shit, Kingsman was this year."
Right. Yeah. It's always tough to remember those things that dropped like very early in the year.
That's what kind of scares me about Deadpool, is like people are gonna be like, they're gonna be talking about their favorite movies of 2016 and not even mention Deadpool because they're gonna have in their mind. But I think Deadpool's gonna be so good.
Yeah.
But back to Daredevil, I think it's the same thing that we kind of talked about earlier with Avengers and Avengers 2, is it did what Jessica Jones did, but it did it first. And I think it was just as good, if not better. And it would just happen to be it was the first like dark and really gritty comic book show that we've had.
Right. Cool.
What would you put at your number one?
For me, it was The Walking Dead, and I tried to make it Supergirl, because Supergirl to me, and frequently when I pick these things, right, like I say, it's not a matter of them being best. A lot of times, it's a matter of something that I feel like that I own, because not a lot of people are into it, and that's how I feel about Supergirl. Show has definitely had problems. I've written many thousands of words about the problems that show had, particularly in its first month. There's still some things it's not nailing, but it has an emotional place for me because I was on it and I was getting into the details of it when other people weren't. So I had a really good time watching the show and following it. However, at the end of the day, to me, and I know everybody doesn't agree with this, but the quality of the writing and the acting and directing and the show running on The Walking Dead is just on an entirely different level than what other television shows do. It is, to me, it is the example of what awesome television is. And it's still good to me in season 6. So.
Yeah, I stopped watching that show because it kind of got a little bit like not necessarily repetitive, but like very similar to previous seasons.
Sure.
But I watched the first 5 seasons of that and loved it, and then I was like, all right, I have to stop watching the show. It's the same thing. I have so many other things I want to watch, and then I saw the trailer for season 6, and was wrapped right back in.
Right. Yeah.
That was a great show. All right, well, this has been episode 2 of the GW of Geeks Worldwide Weekly Geekly. You can find us on SoundCloud as under the same name, and we're on Twitter. We have the Twitter handle is going to be changing because it's the incorrect title for the show. But we are there on Geekly Weekly rather than Weekly Geekly. You can find me at Marvelopedia on Twitter. And where can we find you, Agascles?
You can find me on Twitter at Agascles Stamus, 2 S's in the middle, all one word.
Anything else you want to plug? You talked about the 2 guys, a girl in a scene.
Yeah, so I'll plug everything tonight because I very rarely do. So you can check out the other podcast I'm on that I'm regularly on. 2 guys, a girl in a scene. We do a 3 show per month format. We do a viewing episode 1, and then a top 5 list in the middle, and then do a viewing episode 2. So in the month of January, we're doing Ex Machina for the first viewing room. I forget what we're doing for our top 5 list, and then we are all watching The Martian for viewing room episode number 2. If you want to check out my content on the site, I recently, during the hiatus, I watched all of the Resident Evil films that have been released to date, so all 5 of those, and wrote up kind of 2 aggregate reviews, kind of splitting the franchise in half and a summary. So that was pretty interesting for me to go through, and I'm hoping it's an interesting thing for people to read through. And then coming up for reviews, I'm going to be doing my first book review for the site. I claim, we'll see if I get through the book, but I'll be reading Barsk, the Elephant Graveyard, which is sci-fi and hilariously about anthropomorphic elephants from the future. So that should be a pretty interesting read. And then my first trade of this month is Battle World Master of Kung Fu. So I'll be checking that out. And then I'll be reading a Jessica Jones trade later this month.
I also want to plug the Capes. It's GWW Capes podcast. We had Nick Marino on this week, who's going to eventually come on this show. And at least for me personally, not to slight any other guests that I've been on with, that was my favorite episode that I've done.
All right, cool.
It was. Cool. I'm really excited for people to hear about it and hopefully read this guy's new book, Holy Fuck and Holy Fucked. When you hear him explain what it's actually about, it blows your mind.
Very cool. And my last plug is if you want to check out any of my video game archive from my streams or video game captures, you can check that out over at Rounding Off Infinity on YouTube.
Will do. It was nice catching up with you, Agascles.
Yeah, man. Good show. And we're out of here.